in this ELS meeting number 231, held today on Tuesday, the 5th of November 2024, virtually via Microsoft Teams. As customary, also like to indicate the members of the ELS who are here and present today. We have a full house. I will start with Advocate Nomalanga Stole, who is the CEO at NERSA, who's a member of the ELS, and a member of a number of subcommittees and committees at NERSA. Followed by Ms. Nomfundo Maseti, who is also a member of the ELS. She's a full-time regulator member, primarily responsible for piped gas. She's a member of this committee and a member of other committees and subcommittees at NERSA. I'd like to introduce Ms. Tembe Gasemane, who is also a member of this committee, a chairperson of the Finance Committee, but a member of other committees at NERSA. Also, Mr. Muzi Mkize, who is a full-time regulator member, primarily responsible for petroleum pipelines. She's also a member of this committee and also a member of other committees and subcommittees at NERSA. Lastly, but not least, our chairperson, Mr. Thembani Pokula, who is the chairperson of the energy regulator. He's a member of this committee, also a member of another subcommittee and other committees at NERSA. That's the full complement. We'd also like to introduce and welcome the Danish delegation who are going to be observing today's electricity subcommittee meeting. In particular, I'd like to welcome the representatives of the Danish Energy Agency, DEA, and the Danish Utility Regulator. The Danish delegation is in South Africa to attend a series of partnership workshops with NERSA as part of the Danish Energy Agency's Global Cooperation Program. The Danish NERSA cooperation will focus on capacity building, but will also provide an opportunity for the DEA and the utility regulator delegation to understand NERSA's capabilities and processes. To that end, the Danish delegation are invited to attend the regulatory component of the electricity subcommittee proceedings today. We'd like to welcome them. But before we do, perhaps then we need to then go through the actual agenda as published. There are no changes to it. It is a fairly lengthy program, but hoping that we'll be able to go through it as quickly as possible. Members, by show of hands, can we then adopt the agenda as published? Thank you, Ms. Semane. Thank you, Advocate Sithole, Mr. Mkize, Madam Maseti. I also support Mr. Pokula. Comfortable? Thank you, Mr. Pokula. So the agenda has now been adopted. Thank you. Members, based on the agenda that's before us, the forms, the declaration of interest forms, Advocate Sithole, see your hand is still up? Fingering hand? Thanks, ma'am. Based on the... Yes, ma'am? Sorry.
No, it was a lingering interest, so apologies.
Thank you. Based on the agenda that we have, are there any interests that members may want to declare verbally? By show of hands, if there are. Alternatively, if we can, I can then request the members to complete the forms that have been attached or published on Convene and send them to the Secretariat. This also applies to the management, to the members of management and staff. Thank you. With that, can we then go straight to the regulatory reports, starting with agenda item number 5. Mr. Mkize Jr., over to you and your team.
Thank you, Chairperson. I will just introduce the high-level key points of this particular presentation, which will be presented by Ms. Rakhalakane. Chairperson, this is a temporary exemption for Nojoli Wind Farm. It's a number of IPPs that are requesting for the temporary exemption against Appendix 9 of the RPP code. The reasons for non-compliance to the grid code include delays due to turbine failures and communication issues. It also includes challenges with OEM support and power quality meter installations. It also includes delays due to transformer failure, updated SCADA requirements, and as well as contractual disputes, Chairperson. So Nojoli Wind Farm is requesting an extension up until 15 May 2025, Mulilo DR up until 30 April 2025, and then Mulilo Priska until 31 August 2025. Chairperson, this submission requires the Electricity Subcommittee to approve the temporary exemptions, including the enhanced conditions that are stipulated in the submission. Chairperson, I'll allow Ms. Rakhalakane to give other pertinent details without taking up too much time. Thank you, Ms. Rakhalakane.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mkhize, and good morning, Chairperson, members of the ELS, members of the public, and colleagues. I think Mr. Mkhize has already given the brief in terms of the main key points, but I'll just quickly go through some of them. The purpose of the submission is to request the Electricity Subcommittee to approve temporary exemptions for Nojoli Wind Farm, Mulilo DR PV plant, and Mulilo Priska PV plant from complying with Appendix 9 of the RPP code, of the Renewable Energy Power Plant Connection Code. So the Electricity Subcommittee is delegated as per Clause 1.7 of the delegation matrix to approve applications from the industry requiring exemptions from the South African Grid Code. Particularly Appendix 9 deals with the requirements for Appendix 9 are the 6-yearly routine tests that these plants are supposed to conduct to ensure that they still comply with the code. And the RPPs that are listed in Table 2 and Table 3 were not able to complete these tests on time. And as Mr. Mkhize indicated, the challenges that they've experienced, they range from wind turbine generator failures, step-up transformer, thermal incidents, and just challenges with the OEM support. And also just to give a correction on this Table 3, to say that for Nojoli Wind Farm, their previous exemption was due to expired actually on the 30th of September 2024 and not May or March as is indicated on that table. And they've also provided the reasons for these non-compliances and the steps that they intend to take to ensure that they bring these plants to compliance. And all these are summarized in Table 3. In terms of time, I'll just take the submission as read and move to the recommendations, which are on page 11 and 12 of the submission. It is recommended that the Electricity Subcommittee approve the temporary exemption for Nojoli Wind Farm, which is until 15 May 2025, Mulilo DR until 30 April 2025, and Mulilo Priska until 31st of August 2025, and also to approve the conditions for these exemptions. I'm going to read the exemptions for this particular application so that for the other following applications, we can just refer to them. The conditions for these exemptions are that the RPP must demonstrate must demonstrate compliance to the satisfaction of the system operator or the network service provider, the generator's current capability in relation to the exempted code requirements, and prove assurance that this capability will be maintained for the duration of the exemption period. And should the generator's non-compliance with the code necessitate that the plant be curtailed or disconnected, then the plant does not have a right to claim deemed energy payments. And the RPP generator must submit quarterly reports to NESA and the Grid Code Secretariat on progress made to achieve compliance. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Mkhize Jr., Ms. Rakhalakane. I assume, Mr. Rakhalakane, we are saying that all these codes will apply to all of these exemption applications that are being made here, from item 5 to item 10. correct?
Yes, the conditions will apply. Where there needs to be an exception, then we will indicate as we go through the presentations. Thanks.
Thank you, Madam. Members, we've got the item before us. Any questions for clarity, enhancement, correction? Mr. Mkhize?
Thank you, Chairperson, and thanks to the presenters. From my side, I just want us to, I would prefer that we change the recommendation, not to talk to temporary exemption per se, but to talk to the extension of the exemption. Because that is my understanding, that there was an exemption expiry date, and now they just need to extend that to the dates that are indicated under Table 4. And I would then support that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mkhize, for that enhancement. Mr. Pokula?
Thank you, Chair. My enhancement would be that we need to have, these are separate licenses, so they would have their own licenses and conditions, so we should have 3 of these. I don't have an issue with us approving them as one, since it's something similar, but it should then be on each licensee. Then the second point, I just want to check, which is not what we should be doing in this meeting, is the size of the Mulilo DR PV plant. What is the size of that plant? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Pokula. It's also something, I guess it is an enhancement that could be included on the table just when we're describing any of these applications or other extensions. If it's an extension, if it's a temporary exemption, if it's the first time, if it's an extension, to clearly indicate it's an extension. There is Mr. Pokula, there seems to be an indication of 9.72 on the DR. I guess you are asking because that number might not look correct?
Yes, Chairperson. I didn't think that we would still be correcting numbers that really need to be copied, but in case it's only that portion, the 9.72 part of it, that needs an exemption, which I didn't see in the rest of the submission. But I yeah.
Noted, Mr. Pokula. All right, Mr. Kalakane and Mr. Mkhize, the responses, please. Noting the enhancements, by the way.
Yes, Chairperson. No, we note the enhancements, but I will just give Mr. Kalakane to respond. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Chairperson. So in terms of the size of the plant, it's indicated as 9.72 megawatt. I think if we can be provided an opportunity to confirm, because when I'm checking other records, it's a 10 megawatt solar PV plant. Yeah, so apologies on that, but we can confirm in terms of the actual size. Thanks.
Thank you. As long as the numbers are correct from all, I think that the issue that is asked by Mr. Pokula, and he's been repeatedly asking the same thing, is that can we, at least as we copy one number from the numbers provided onto tables, that we just do it correctly, so that it doesn't raise questions solely because of the incorrectness of numbers. But if the number is 9.72 and is correct, that is fine. That is all that Mr. Pokula wanted to have assurance on. Thank you. With that, with those enhancements, we need to look at how we actually separate those items, those three applications into 3 properly, because there are 3 different licenses, but while still maintaining the efficiency in terms of if the applications are the same. Mr. Pokola?
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, when you Google the DR solar plant, they produce 85,458 megawatt hours per annum, and it's unlike that a 10 megawatt plant can produce so many megawatt hours per annum. So I'm not sure if we can have 85,000 megawatt hours from a 10 megawatt plant. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Pokola. So the team will check that number and verify, but I see your hand is up, Mr. Rakalakan.
Yes, no, I just wanted to confirm that from the application and also the records that we have, it is the maximum export capacity of the plant is 9.72 megawatts. Thanks.
All right. Please verify the numbers, especially in terms of the energy that is generated therefrom, and see if those numbers do correspond. Thank you. With that, members, if there are no further clarifications or areas of improvement or enhancement, can I then take you to the decision that is sought, which is under paragraph 14, and it has been read into the record. Thanks, Ms. Halakani, you made my job easier. By show of hands, members, can we approve with the enhancements that the team are going to make and the follow-up? Thank you, Madam Simane. Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. Thank you, Mr. Pukula. Thank you, Advocate Sithole. Madam Maseti, still on the call, I hope. But anyway, you got your decision. Thank you, Madam Maseti. You've got a decision, Mr. Mkhize. If you can then take us to the next item, but do indicate any differences. Thank you, Mr. Kane, for your efficiency in this. So you'll indicate where there are differences, but because they are fairly similar, but taking into account the issues that members have raised. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Maybe just to also mention, Chairperson, that indeed we take cognizance of the improvements that are required in drafting these submissions. We are in the process of trying to improve these. Some of them still need to go to language editing. But we do really appreciate the input from members. We really highly appreciate every input to improve, and we are taking these into account. Chairperson, on this particular one, is very similar, as you said, to the previous one. This is a temporary exemption also for Uppington PV plant. They are also requesting an exemption from Appendix 9. It's also got to do, the reasons of non-compliance has got to do with issues of plant technology upgrades that need to be done, and the lack of support from the inverter OEM, prolonged SCADA commissioning, and so on. So, Chairperson, the remedial actions include site testing that needs to be done, the fault data identification, and running models on simulation. So, Chairperson, I'll give it to Mr. Khalakane to also mention other pertinent issues that will assist members to make a decision. But we do take the submission as having been read, Chairperson. Mr. Khalakane, you can come in and just point out other matters that are deemed to be pertinent on this particular one. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. This one is also a temporary exemption application from Uppington PV. They are also seeking exemption from Appendix 9. The reason we are presenting this one separately is just for the Electricity Subcommittee to note that the application was actually presented at the GCAC in May this year, and on this one, the GCAC did not recommend the exemption application for NESA approval because the previous exemption application, with the previous exemption application period, the GCAC felt that the applicant did not demonstrate any satisfactory progress on activities that were scheduled to bring the plant to compliance. And the recommendation from the GCAC was that NESA should monitor this RPP on a monthly basis to ensure that progress is made on activities until such a time that there's significant progress, then an exemption can be granted. As the grid code team, we did have an engagement with this RPP, whereby the RPP was given a chance to explain in detail some of the challenges that they are experiencing on their plant in bringing the plant to compliance, and also to understand why they did not honor some of the previous some of the conditions of the previously granted exemption. So also with this one, the challenges are summarized in table 3, and they also mainly it's technical challenges with their inverters, and also lack of OEM support. And also one of the other major things that they mentioned is that in the year that this exemption was granted, there were some organizational changes that took place where for a prolonged period they didn't have an asset manager to take care of some of the activities. And having met with having engaged with the plant to understand the challenges, and also giving them an opportunity to scope their outstanding activities correctly, and also allocation of the required time, the grid code team is recommending that the application be approved, and that the plant be given another chance to bring its plant to compliance. The network service provider also gave support for the plant to be given another chance to address the non-compliant aspect of the plant. So the recommendations also on this one are on page 10 and also on page 11. It is recommended that the Electricity Subcommittee approve Uppington's application until the end of January 2025, and also approve the conditions that are on page 11. And on this one, in terms of the condition number C, which is on quarterly reporting, we are requesting just a correction on that one, so that the reporting from this plant is on a monthly basis, as recommended by the GCAC. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Ms. Rakalakane, but I guess let's correct 14.1 to say it's an extension of an existing exemption, correct? As requested by Mr. Mkhize. Members, any questions, announcements on this one, specific to this one? None. So then can I then take you to the decision that has been sought and that's been read into the record by Ms. Rakalakane with that change on 14.1, that is an extension of the existing exemption, and also the change on 14.2C from a quarterly report to a monthly report. By show of hands, members, if we can approve those, can approve that recommendation. Madam Massetti, Madam Simene, Mr. Mkhize, Advocate Tole, and Mr. Bukula. Thank you, Ms. Rakalakane. You've got your decision. If we can take us to the next item, please. Item 7.
Yes, thank you, Chairperson. This one, Chairperson, is slightly different. This is Kahana's wind farm, Kobab wind farm, Pedekral wind farm. Noport wind farm is applying for an exemption from complying with clause 16.3 of the RPP code. Chairperson, this will be presented by Mr. Nicholas Maluleke. But I just want to also emphasize, Chairperson, the fact that these exemptions come as a result of similar issues, which does include issues of non-support from OEMs, as well as other technical issues. Mr. Maluleke, if you can come in and just explain the main cause of these exemptions, as well as the remedies. Thank you. Come in, Mr. Maluleke.
No, thank you, Mr.
Before you do, Madam Simane, I assume this is a legacy hand?
Apologies, Chair, it's a legacy hand.
Thank you. Please proceed, Mr. Maluleke.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Mkhize. Good morning, members, Chairperson, colleagues, and good morning to the public. As briefly outlined by Mr. Mkhize, the electricity subcommittee is delegated to, as per clause 1.7 of the electricity delegation matrix of 29 August 2024, to approve applications from ESI requiring exemption from the South African Grid Code. This application is for Kagnas Wind Farm, Cobab Wind Farm, Pedekran, and as outlined by Mr. Mkhize. The reasons for non-compliance, as outlined on Table 3, amongst others, is the issues of disputes with the OEM, and also they've outlined their communications and meetings which they try to hold with the OEM in trying to resolve the issues. And in the remedial actions, they also shared the timeline for, which is 51 weeks for trying to resolve the issue so that they comply to the South African grid code. And on the analysis is that the grid code is a regulatory tool which is used by NERSA to enforce compliance on the licenses after having undertaken necessary grid integrity assessment to protect the network and the safety of personnel as a mitigation measure. Therefore, it is recommended that the Electricity Subcommittee approve the temporary exemptions for Kagnas Wind Farm, Cobab Wind Farm, Pedekran Wind Farm, and Nopod Wind Farm, as outlined on Table 4. And also to mention that they are all requesting exemption until the 1st of August 2025. And the conditions, I'll take them as outlined by Ms. Rahalakan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Maluleke. Members, you've got the item before us. Any questions specific to this one? Noting the improvements, enhancements that have been proposed by members. So 14.3 should actually read, it should start with 14.1 actually, the numbering is wrong, 14.1. 14.1 should actually read as an extension, I'll assume. But nonetheless, Mr. Mkhize?
Yeah, I think that the team, as part of the improvement, they should also explain just in simple layman's term, try to for the benefit of people that are also on following us as to what this exemption primarily is about and risk involved, so that we can then be able to take decisions quickly and they are understood by and large. But I also appreciate what Mr. Willem Mkhize explained in terms of improvements in crafting these documents. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. And no further comments, members? Enhancements? I think that was an enhancement, Mr. Mkhize Jr. I know you tried to, it's difficult to get engineers to speak non-engineering, but yeah, if you can try, please, when we're presenting these things, to also look at the layman person out there who might be interested to understand what exactly are you talking about, even in terms of all of the SCADAs and what have you, and all of the issues that you may be raising. That's just for the future. Thank you. With that, can I then ask members, if there are no further questions, ask members that we then take you to the recommendation that is sought, which is on paragraph 14. It should be 14.1, not 14.3, but just a slight numbering issue there. From 14.1 and 14.2, as has been read into the record. And so by show of hands, members, if we can approve those. Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. Thank you, Madam Smane, Advocate Sithole, Madam Maseti. Mr. Pokola, comfortable? Thank you, Mr. Pokola. Mr. Mkhize, you've got your decision. Can take us to item 8, please.
Thank you, Chairperson. Yes, we will try indeed to break down the technical lingo so that it is more understandable, and I hope the colleagues are noting this. Chairperson, this one is also a temporary exemption for Mondi, South Africa, from complying with clause 3.1.6.5 of the Transmission Network Code. Note that the other ones were in relation to the RPP code, which is a renewable power plant code. So this one, Chairperson, is specifically the Transmission Network Code of version 10.1 of January 2022. Sibusiso Zungu will take us through the details in terms of why Mondi is requesting this particular exemption. I don't even want to touch on some of the technical jargon that is within this one, but I'm hoping that Mr. Zungu will really try to just break it down for members and the public. Thank you, Mr. Zungu. You can come in. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Mkhize. Good morning, colleagues, members, and the members of the public. So the purpose of this submission is to request ELS to approve a temporary exemption for Mondi Richards Bay cogeneration plan from complying with clause 3.1.6.5 of the Transmission Network Code. Basically, the primary objective of clause 3.6.5 of the Network Code is to specify the low frequency requirements for turbo alternators so that maybe they can reduce the output in instances whereby the breaker where they export power breaks and also island, which means they must be capable of operating without being interconnected to the integrated national grid. So this application for Mondi was considered by the GCAC, and Mondi is a cogeneration plant with installed capacity of 75 megawatts. Currently, it sells 10 megawatts to the city of Mhlathuze municipality, 14 megawatts to Eskom, and the remaining megawatts are for own use. So table 2 on page 3 stipulates the temporary exemptions that we previously approved by the energy regulator. But the current exemption that we are being discussing, which is exemption number 1 on table number 2, expired on 30 April 2024. Reason being that the initial project plan and the project scope did not achieve the full compliance. And then they have to embark on a different process and deploy a different project scope to achieve full compliance, of which is elaborated on from page 6 to page 7. Basically, what they're required to do, they were required to deploy the protection, a rate of change of frequency. What does that mean? It means because when Mondi supplies the city of Mhlathuze with 10 megawatts and also supplies the Eskom with 14 megawatts, if one of those breakers trip either from Mhlathuze side or from Eskom side, the cogeneration plant must be capable of reducing the load in line with what is indicated on table number 4, or also island, so that the capacity does not spill over. Maybe if the breaker at city of Mhlathuze breaks, then that energy or capacity does not spill over to Eskom. So in order to achieve that, they have to use that rate of change of frequency so that the cogeneration plant can see the imbalances and also respond appropriately. So as a mitigation measure, currently there's an islanding detection scheme that has been deployed on that network just to ensure that those spillovers do not happen, and also to ensure that the Mondi cogeneration plant can be islanded. So basically, that is the purpose of this exemption, to say they have to reach full compliance with the requirements of clause 3.1.65 by deploying a new project scope. So in order to achieve that, they will require this extension of the temporary exemption to expire on the 31st of December 2026, also in line with the previous conditions that are stipulated under 4.2. Thanks, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Zungu. Members, any comments, enhancements on this one? Questions? By show of hands? If none, I'll assume that he's tried to explain this in as simple language as he could, the issues of engineers notwithstanding. But anyway, members, by show of hands, if we can then approve that recommendation, which is on paragraph 14, as has been read into the record. Thank you, Mr. Mkiza, Madam Maseti, Madam Simane, Mr. Pokola. Advocate Sitole, comfortable? Thank you, Advocate. So, Mr. Zungu, you've got your decision. If we can then move on, Mr. Mkiza Jr. to item 9.
Thank you, Chairperson. This one is also, Chairperson, an exemption from certain clauses of the transmission network code. Ms. Rakhalakane will read them out. It's quite a number of them. It is for Ilovo Sezela Mill. And as Chairperson, maybe just to mention that this exemption is to basically maybe just to give a bit of a background, Chairperson. Ilovo Mill is a sugar manufacturing company with a cogeneration facility very similar to Mondi. It also seeks to export excess power to the Eskom distribution network. The facility needs to comply with the grid code as well as the network code. But currently they are looking to be exempted from 4 particular exemptions of the network code. Ms. Rakhalakane will just take us through the high-level details and provide some clarity. Thank you, Chairperson.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mkize. And Chairperson, the purpose of this submission is to request the Electricity Subcommittee to approve temporary exemptions for Ilovo Sezela Mill from complying with clauses 3.13, subsection 4, 5, 6, 7, and 9, and also appendix A 2.33, subsection 2 of the transmission network code, and also an exemption from appendix 3 of the information exchange code. As indicated previously, the electricity subcommittee is delegated as per clause 1.7 of the delegation matrix to approve exemption applications from the industry. So Ilovo Sezela Mill operates a cogeneration facility which is registered with NESA, and the facility is operated for own consumption and also for exporting into the grid. It actually has a PPA that they've signed with Energy Exchange of Southern Africa, and I think they are a power trader that would be buying power from this cogen and on selling to customers or wheeling to other customers. So the facility is currently not compliant with aspects of the transmission code and the information exchange code as outlined in table 3. And also just to highlight that the KwaZulu-Natal distribution operating unit as the licensed network service provider to whose network this registered facility is connected to, actually brought this application to the GCAC on behalf of Ilovo. Ilovo, as the applicant, was there, but the NSP brought the application on behalf of Ilovo as a registrant. And the main challenges that the co-generating facility is having in addressing the non-compliant aspects. Most of the non-compliances are linked to the age of the machines and the fact that there is currently no documented records in terms of some of the settings for these machines and also the capability of these machines. So that's the main challenge that this generation facility is facing in terms of meeting those requirements. So I will also maybe take the submission as read. The explanation of the non-compliances are summarized on table 3, and also how the plan intends to resolve those non-compliances. They've already done a number of tests to demonstrate what the current capabilities of these machines are, but then they still need a bit of time to derive some of the information, as some of the tests, some of the information capability data they can only derive by conducting some of the tests, and these tests they've indicated that they do take time. Hence, they are requesting that they be granted exemptions starting from with the first one, the first temporary exemption. They are requesting an exemption to be granted for 18 months from the commercial operation date, and with the temporary exemption number 2, which is still on GCR3 for 24 months from the COD date, and temporary exemption number 3, which will they require 60 months from commercial operation date, because this one requires that there be an industry expert team that will look at the challenges that the cogeneration facilities are facing in meeting this particular requirement, and then make a recommendation or propose an amendment to the code. And the last one is the generation planning data, temporary exemption number 4, which is also 18 months from COD. All these recommendations that I've just read for the electricity subcommittee to approve are on page 9 of 9, and they are listed in table 4. And also the request is also for the approval of the conditions that will then be attached to these exemptions. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Madam. Members, any questions, comments, enhancements on this particular one? By show of hands. If none, taking into account the initial comments, Mr. Kalakane, members, can I then take you to the recommendation as has been read onto the record? It's paragraph 14. By show of hands, members, can we approve? Madam Maseti, thank you, Ms. Mane, thank you, Advocate Tolle, Mr. Mkize, thank you, Mr. Pukula. Mr. Alakana, you've got your decision. The last one of these exemptions, item 10, Mr. Mkize, Junior.
Thank you, Chairperson. Just quickly, this is also a temporary exemption for Konkosi's 2 wind farm and Nowport wind farm. This one, Chairperson.
By the way, apologies, Mr. Mkize. Mr. Pokula, is it a legacy hand?
Thank you. Chair, apologies.
Thank you. Mr. Mkize Jr., continue, please.
Yes, Chairperson. This one is an application for an exemption from complying with clause 9.4 of the grid code, which is the RPP. Mr. Nicholas Maluleke will take us through this one, Chairperson. But just to mention that this is very similar to the first one. It's an exemption from Appendix 9 of the grid code. Mr. Maluleke, you can keep it very high level. Just take members through what is probably different to the first one. Thank you. You can come
in. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mkize. Apologies, I'm the one that is supposed to carry this application, Mr. Shabalala. I think he just mistakenly picked up Nicholas. if you may allow me to proceed.
Please proceed, Mr. Chabalala.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairperson, members, management colleagues, and members of the public. This application, it's mainly for Konkosi Wind Farm and Newport Wind Farm, as Mr. Mkhize has actually alluded. They are requesting exemption against clause 9.4. The reasons, Chairperson, for this non-compliance were identified during the power quality assessments that were carried. And for Konkosi 2 wind farm, it's mainly the resonance screening and the flicker. And then for the Newport wind farm, it's mainly the harmonic orders. So mainly this exemption, Chairperson, it's talking to the power quality. In simple terms, power quality refers to how well the electricity delivered to the electrical equipment matches the desired characteristics. In other words, the power quality of supply may cause electrical devices or equipment in the power system to malfunction, to be damaged, or also not to operate at all. If I may proceed, the progress achieved, Chairperson, to date with these two wind farms is that the supply, a placement of a 10-key contract with a supplier was placed, and then the completion of the detailed design, the completion of civil works is done on both these plans. And the recommendations, Chairperson, they are on page 9 of 9, which 14.1, the EL approve the temporary exemption of Konkosi 2 wind farm and Newport wind farm from complying with clause 9.4 on the grid connection code for renewable power plants version 3.1. I'm not going to read through the enhancement conditions as they were read through by Mekhalakani. And apologies, Chairperson, I was supposed to also request maybe to do some correction on table number 1. There was just a typo issue there on the delegation matrix that is on page number 2 of 9. The 1.5 should actually be 1.7, Chairperson. I submit. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chabalala, and thank you also for noting that the change, that correction that you seek. Members, any particular questions on this particular one? Enhancements? By show of hands? None. Mr. Chabalala, also please remember the next time to note whether something is it a temporary exemption or is it an extension, and so forth, so that at least we can have improvements in that space. And also, we've got 2 of them here, so we need to, as a team, decide how to maintain the efficiency of presenting these ones, but noting that those are 2 separate licenses that are being applied for. Thank you, members. With a show of hands, can we approve the recommendation, which is paragraph 14, 14.1 and 14.2? Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. Thank you, Madam Maseti. Mr. Pukula, thank you, Ms. Semane, and thank you, Advocate Titole. Mr. Chabalala, you've got your decision. Just to close on this one, there was an issue raised earlier by Mr. Pukula around checking the numbers. For instance, that in Lilo, there are PV, if its size is 9.72 and it's reported to have produced 85,000 megawatt hours in 1 year. Clearly, that's 100%. That can only do that if it's got a 100% load factor, which we know this. The sun is not always up. The sun is up for a certain number of hours. So can we then just make sure, Mr. Mkhize Jr., that as part of these people that sit at the GCAC, that you actually get these numbers to be verified, so that for those people that might be dealing with this, they can actually clearly see, because it's not possible to have an 85,000 megawatt hour produced from a 9.72 megawatt plant. Mr. Mkhize, I assume this is a lingering hand. I saw Mr. Pukula's hand come up. Mr. Mkhize, lingering hand? Yes. Mr. Pukula?
Yes, it was.
Thank you.
Chairperson, the point I was trying to ask there, although the answer was like quick confirming that, is that in that site of DR and DR, there's two plants. There's one that was, yes, a 10 megawatt plant, and there's another one that was a 20 something megawatt plant that was also licensed, and I think it's the same one. So what I was trying to find out is which one okay, they've listed 9.72, or which is a 10 megawatt plant. In a way, I was trying to understand how then does the other one, the 21 megawatt plant, not fall foul of how does it meet the grid code? I mean, they're sort of in the same thing, but we can discuss it separately. But the amount being produced, what you're saying is correct. You have to put in a load factor of something of 100% for it to produce that much. But we can discuss it outside of this, Mr. Comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pukula. I think just Mr. Mkiza Jr. really is it's just a value add that if you can also just verify, get the team to just verify some of these numbers when one of these things come for a discussion, just to get a feel in terms of the size and compare that with public information to see whether there is some level of correlation between the published numbers, the public numbers, and what is being applied for. I'll do that. Thank you for all of the for those applications. Now we move off that and move on to item number 11, Mr. Mkiza Jr.
Yeah, thank you, Chairperson. Maybe just to mention, Chairperson, that I personally used to do also these exemptions, and part of what I used to do was just to verify those facts, even just with a simple Google, as Mr. Pukula has done. So we will definitely try to assist the colleagues to really just at least do that high-level check so that the details flow from a global understanding of the issues. Chairperson, this one, item 11, is a procedure which now implements the framework that the ELS approved in May this year. The document basically outlines the procedure that is followed in implementing the distribution compliance and enforcement framework. It details the roles, responsibilities, and processes which are involved in ensuring compliance with the electricity regulations. And I must just state, Chairperson, that I was quite involved in the production of this document, so I will go a little bit into detail before I call Ms. Bulelwa Gobe to provide what I will not be able to mention. So the purpose, Chairperson, of this procedure is to guide ELC audit team in terms of the process that needs to be followed during the pre-audit, the audit, as well as the post-audit activities. This will ensure effective monitoring and enforcement of the electricity license conditions, as well as to operationalize the distribution compliance framework and conduct a consistent compliant audit. So we want to make sure that the same process is followed in the process of conducting these audits, Chairperson. So that's the purpose. Just to maybe mention, Chairperson, also that the compliance audit has got the 4 major phases. It used to have 3, but we have included a phase that includes now the post-tribunal phase, which will be a phase after all the findings in terms of whether there are breaches with regard to license conditions. So we have now included this phase to ensure that whatever the tribunal has decided is indeed implemented. So maybe just to go through once again, there's the pre-audit phase, which is to identify the licensees that need to be audited, to draft annual plans, to establish contact with the specific licensees that need to be audited, It also involves the sending of questionnaires as well as the actual finalization of the audit plans. During the audit phase, Chairperson, the business side of the licensee is assessed through a number of questions that were pre-sent to the licensee, as well as the operational and technical aspects of the business. So sites are inspected and non-compliances are then highlighted. Post the audit phase, there is a drafting of the reports which then address the non-compliances, highlight them, and these reports are then sent to the licensee for his comments to concur as to whether the findings were, just to agree with the findings of the report. Should it be found that there are non-compliance to license conditions, these will then be taken to LAS, who will then compile a submission to recommend the sitting of the tribunal via the ELS. And then post the tribunal phase, Chairperson, of course, the tribunal will decide on the allegations to decide whether there is going to be an issuance of a non-compliance notification. Once this is decided, post the tribunal, there is an issuance of this directive to the non-compliant licensee. The team also has to monitor whether indeed this is complied with. Of course, there will be a need for compliance reports to ensure that the members are appraised of the status of the compliance of the licensees that were audited previously. The enforcement process, Chairperson, involves LAS compiling reports, as I've mentioned earlier, and presenting these to the ELS for them to recommend whether the tribunal should sit or whether the merits of the case are not, they are not warranted for the sitting of the tribunal. But maybe I'll just stop here, Chairperson, and allow Ms. Khobe, if there are any other details that are pertinent that you would want to add. But Chairperson, in a nutshell, taking the submission as having been read, this is basically the summary of the submission. Ms. Khobe, if there's anything you want to add, you can come in. Thank you.
Good morning to our regulator members, to our colleagues, and to the members of the public. Mr. Mkiza, you've almost said it all. All I can add is maybe to share a little bit of background in case of those people who are in the meeting today who were not in the meeting of May 2024. So the way we used to do these audits was that we would send reports to the licenses, and then we would ask them to develop a corrective action plan. And we found that even after they develop those corrective action plans, they still do not comply with the license conditions. So the background to the revision of the framework was that going forward, we will send all the reports with non-compliances to LAS after they have been noted by the ELS. As an example, we have one of those that we will be presenting as item 19. So now we no longer ask the licenses to develop those action plans because we realized that it was not giving us the desired outcomes. And now we will go the tribunal route, which Mr. Mkize has mentioned in detail. Thank you. That's what I needed to add. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Mkiza and Ms. Khobe. I guess before the members ask the question, Mr. Mkize, Does this procedure now take into account the changes that are proposed by the Electricity Regulation Amendment Act?
Chairperson, we have indeed tried to add the provisions of the Electricity Amendment Act by adding the parts that talk about the revocation of registrations, as well as the revocation of licenses after a licensee failed to comply with the payment of fines, as well as the initial notification of non-compliance. That, Chairperson, and other details were added to indeed try to comply with the amended error as well, Chairperson. But of course, we do welcome any further enhancements to the document before its finalization, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walile Mkhize. Members, we've got the document before us. Any questions, enhancements? It is here for correction. Madam Massetti.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, you've covered me on the first question because we had a workshop this morning and there were a number of areas that will require NERSA to improve its enforcement efforts, not only to distributors, but also to other licensees. So I wasn't certain when I was reading this document that it takes care of the areas that were explained by Mr. Murati this morning during the workshop, as well as Ms. Makubane. So I was a bit concerned about the timing of this document before we could conclude on the areas of non-compliance and what we need to do. And I was a bit worried about the timing thereof of these procedures, and also clarifying even there's some there are other roles that are given to the energy regulator, even the being the arbitrator, and also failure to comply with the decisions or directions of the energy regulator. Things now that are introduced which criminalizes a conduct. I know that we don't have the powers to enforce criminal orders and all of that, but we can then take up an issue where licensees have failed to comply with the directions of the energy regulator, and therefore take the matter forward to enforcement agencies that will have criminal powers. But there are things that I think perhaps this document ought to have clarified properly in terms of the procedures, how we deal with those things, what is the approach of the regulator and all of that. So I thought perhaps it will be premature, at least from my understanding of the document and what needs to be done. Further to that, Chairperson, on paragraph 6, 6.1.4, just for my own understanding of the time period mentioned on paragraph 6.1.4, the 6 weeks there that is mentioned. Is there a particular reason that why we stating 6 weeks before we commence the audits? And that is just the, sending off an invitation letter and sending the questionnaires, but then we even state that it is a minimum. So I'm not sure there. Just to understand, perhaps is it because of the preparations that you want to allow the licensee, or any other reason why we choose 6 weeks, for instance, and not 4 weeks, for example? If I can be clarified on that, so I can understand the reason. Then, Chairperson, on paragraph 6.2.6, we are talking. There's a paragraph that is actually not numbered, but is just below paragraph 6.2.6. It states that in instances where a physical audit cannot be conducted, then a desktop audit should be arranged with the licensee. It then says that once that is done, then it must be followed up by physical site inspection within 6 months of the pre-audit phase. I got confused here because you would have taken a decision on your own or exercising your discretion that perhaps for this particular licensee, you will be doing the desktop audits. Now, the pre-audit phase, is it after now you have done the desktop and then you want to conduct audits, but again you've spoken about the inspections that must be done in six months? Can you just clarify how this is going to unfold? I mean, from a practical point of view, if I can be clarified on that. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Madam Massetti. Advocate Itoli. Ms.
Thank
Kobe,
you,
I will come back to you guys, so you don't have to raise your hand. I will come back to you. You have to respond to all of the questions asked by members. Advocate Itoli, yes?
Thanks, Chairperson, and thanks to the presenters. Chair, I don't have a lot of questions, just 2 or 3. The first one is on page 13, under 6.3.2. We are saying once the draft audit report has been done, we will send it to the licensee's management to respond on it. And we are giving them 2 working days to do so. And I thought the time was just too short, and I don't think it's really reasonable. For me, probably 7 to 14 days would be working days would be reasonable. But the team can explain as to why they chose 2 working days. And when one goes to page 14 under paragraph 6.3.7, we're saying once the LAS has drafted a report and made a recommendation that a tribunal should sit, we are saying that should be approved, or rather a decision should be made by the ELS. And I think looking at the current era of 2006, it says it gives the ER a discretion to make that particular decision. And also the 2024 one also gives the ER a discretion to sit as a tribunal, because the word may is used in the two acts. And again, when you look at this procedure, there is also a contradiction with paragraph 7.2 on page 15, which I believe is the correct one, that says the ELS must recommend to the ER to establish a tribunal. And that's where the ER would then exercise that discretion of whether they would want to sit or not to sit. And then the other last thing, Chair, that I just wanted to ask the team is whether do they view sitting as a tribunal as the only way of dealing with some of the issues of non-compliance? Did they look at other alternative ways of dealing with this, such as maybe referring that to an arbitration? Is there a specific reason that we really want to insist on sitting as a recommending a sitting of a tribunal? Chair, I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Advocate. Mr. Mkiza.
Chairperson, I will touch just on a high level.
Yeah, I thought I was asking Mr. Mkiza Jr. I saw your hand was up, Mr. Mkiza. Sorry, Mr. Mkiza Senior. Are you covered, Mr. Mkiza? Sorry, Mr.
No. Thanks, Mr. Mkiza. Let me just thanks, Chairperson. Let me just comment here. I would say that I deem this procedure to be very important in terms of us being able to execute our mandate, and especially with regard to compliance monitoring and enforcement at the distribution level. And it should be clear when we're talking about an SOP, which is standard operating procedures for ourselves as a regulator, and that we quickly get it out because we can always improve on it. However, I think that here there are issues of timelines, where the timelines are like giving notice, so to say, of going to conduct an audit, being, in my view, longer than what one would expect, unless there are reasons provided, as well as getting a response being shorter than what one would expect. So one, in terms of the timelines, and also being wary of imposing limits in terms of the minimum time to notify a licensee of a pending audit, whether that shouldn't apply to ourselves internally and not necessarily become an excuse for a licensee. So I'm saying we need just to look at that. And there are issues here of a standard procedure document. If we can just maybe try to rework the document, first of all, even just the language editing of the document itself in its entirety, and then rework the document in the mold of the standard operating procedures for the organization. I think it will also help to have a flow chart annexed to it, just so that it makes it easy to see how things should flow, and also that in dealing with these matters, yes, we need to go through the tribunal route, but there could be instances where some of the things can be fixed quickly, and therefore a plan to do that could suffice, and then that is done quicker. So I'm saying do consider that, and not just straitjacket everyone to the tribunal route in terms of catering for all cases, or maybe if you choose to straitjacket it in that fashion, then you'll have to kind of qualify what is in scope and out of scope right at the beginning. I think for me, it's going to be important to do that. Also, when it comes to the authority, the authority talks to the action to be taken against licenses, and not the authority to approve this procedure. So if you can just talk to that in terms of the delegated authority of this subcommittee. So I would without any waste of time, Chairperson, from my side, I would recommend that the document is, as I said, is very important, be sent back, revised accordingly as we've said, but I think that there could be need to give feedback in terms of the understanding, especially on the questions of timelines, and then we can deal with the document. If they're fast enough, one would say that even do approval via round robin if need be, but I don't think that it would do a lot of harm to wait for the next meeting, and then it's sent back, unless there are other reasons why it shouldn't be. I will leave it at that, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mkiza. Mr. Mkiza has put a proposal, members, for this document to be sent back, which I must admit I would support on the basis that, and I guess the issue here is the delay in terms of the operationalization of the Electricity Regulation Amendment Act. Because unfortunately, a lot of these things that we used to do, some Mkiza's proposing an SOP, but some aspects of this, of Section 32 and also of Section 18, and that revocation clause, clauses, a lot of those things are actually supposed to be prescribed by a rule. So there's a need to actually develop a rule. Actually, we need to be quite clear in terms of there needs to be rules in terms of how the actual tribunal will be run. So we need to be quite clear issues that will be that will need to go into a rule, and issues that need to go into an SOP. So I think what I'm suggesting is that it seems to me that once the Electricity Regulation Amendment Act is operationalized, we need to give effect to its prescription, which is really about rules. So the proposal by Mr. Mkhize, members, I'd like to put it through to you. And I note the comments raised, but if we are sending it back to, if members agree to this document being sent back to make sure that it totally aligns with ERA, and also where it needs to be SOP issues needs to be extracted and put into a standard operating procedure to guide work that is done internally versus things that need to be done by the licensees and so forth, and also to correct some of the contradictions as noted by Advocate Sithole, who's supposed to do this, ELS or the or the ER, and also the issues that were raised by Madam Massetti in terms of that alignment, as well as she's also indicated as well, and to clarify the issues of timelines. Why 6 weeks and not 4 weeks and so forth? So it's those things. It does mean that there is a fair amount of work, I think, that needs to be done. But I think for me, the biggest of which is about alignment with the Amendment Act. So by a show of hands, members, if there is any support for the proposal by Mr. Mkhize to have this sent back for proper alignment, and perhaps even to identify issues that supposed to go to the SOP, etc. I note your hand, Ms. Advocate Sithole, Ms. Simane. Thank you. Any further? Mr. Mkhize, it is your proposal. You're not supporting your own proposal? Mr. Mkhize, or did I read your, Madam Massetti, thanks for your support. Mr. Mkhize, it was your proposal that it be sent back. Oh, okay, thank you. I was surprised. Mr. Pukula, happy with it being sent back for realignment, including language editing and all of those things, issues of number of days and separation of standard operating procedure issues from the rule issues, etc. Happy with that? Okay, I can't see your hand, Mr. Pukula. Hoping you don't have any concerns though, that with the proposal. So team, Mr. Mkhize Jr., I think the request is clear. I've tried to summarize from my point of view as well in terms of what work that we need to do to make sure that we come back here with level of clarity of what things need to go for a rule. And you know how a rule is supposed to be developed is clearly indicated in Section 35, 1 to 3 of the ERA. So we will need to follow that, but also we need to then look at things that are looking at the standard operating procedures. Some kids are saying it can be brought back by a round robin if need be, but I doubt that it's something that we'll be able to do and be able to bring it back before the next meeting. But I'm hoping you are comfortable with that, Mr. Mkhize Jr.
I'm comfortable with that, Chairperson. Thank you.
All right. No, thank you. So this is sent back to you for further work. Thank you. Let's go to item number 12. Mr. Mkhize Jr., who's taking us through this one?
I will quickly take you through the just the introduction, Chairperson, and then Mr. Sechoko, I'm still struggling to say his surname. Mr. S will just give a further introduction before Mr. Alufe comes in. So, Chairperson, the document is a consultation paper which needs to be published by the regulator for the comments of stakeholders and the public. So, Chairperson, the aim is to update and restructure, or rather the aim of the application, or Eskom has applied in order to update and restructure Eskom's tariff charges based on its 24-25 cost to serve study. So this is to ensure that tariffs are in line with their CTS study. Just of high level, Chairperson, in terms of changes that have occurred or changes that they are requesting to be approved, there is a need to update tariff charges to align with the 24-25 cost to serve study to reflect actual electricity costs, cost of supply. There are also time of use adjustments, modifying the toll periods and rates, including extending the evening peak period, as well as introducing a standard period on Sunday evenings. Number 3, there's also a need for service charges based on points of delivery, that's on the retail side, to be changed from per account to per point of delivery. Chairperson, sorry for that bit of confusion. And then fourthly, the unbundling of energy charges, that is the separation of energy charges into a fixed generation capacity charge as well as a legacy charge. So this is also an attempt to try and align to what is coming, which is the market, Chairperson. And then fifthly, the generation capacity charge is being introduced to recover the fixed costs related to generation capacity. So this was part of the 2022 or 2023 application and was rejected by the energy regulator, but they are bringing it back at a reduced amount, which will be mentioned, or percentage rather. There is also the need to recover the legacy charge, as I've mentioned, the recovery of costs from legacy contracts through a cent per kilowatt hour charge for all customers, except for those that are on the home light tariff. And then number 7, the municipal tariff rationalization. They are consolidating municipal tariffs from 15 to only 3 categories, which is the Munich Flex, the Munich Rate, and the public lighting. There's also a requirement, number 8, for residential tariff charges to remove the inclined block tariff, the IBT, particularly from the home light tariffs, as well as the home power tariff. And then there are others, Chairperson, but I will allow Mr. Sechoklo maybe to just give what I provide, the details that I did not provide, as well as to maybe allow Mr. Zwanga to formally present the submission, Chairperson, because of its importance. Mr. S, you can come in. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, members, and good morning, colleagues. Babu Mkhize, I think, Junior, I think it might just be a repetition of what you said. I think most important is if members can go to page 12 of the consultation paper. That's where you've got all the changes in detail in the table. So if members can go there, we have already mentioned some of them. I think for me, the most important part is the one of the Muniflex, the combining of municipal tariffs. I think it's also taking away the issue that we always have of municipalities, some of them buying on Megaflex and obviously having a cheaper tariff, and the others buying on Night Safe, which is more expensive. That's resulting that in those municipalities that are buying on Night Safe, their customers actually would have higher tariffs than the ones that are on Megaflex. So I think this is a positive move from Eskom. But I think there's also one that I just need to highlight, and some work will need to be done on that one. Eskom is actually proposing the removal of IBT on the grounds that it does not serve the purposes that it does. Previously, we had asked Eskom to actually do a bit of a study and support that assertion that it does not serve the purpose. We have not received that, but we are still engaging with Eskom even during the consultation process. I think, Chair, that is really the additions I would do. But obviously, Babu Mkhize has actually covered most of the submission. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Alufe, do you still want to add anything else? Seems like the issues have been covered. This is a consultation paper.
Thanks, Chair. My seniors have covered me. Maybe I can just add that the submission have met all statutory requirements. We have confirmed with ESCOM with proof that they've consulted SALGA and the National Treasury on the 16th of July 2020, and that the application have met policy position 23 of the electricity pricing policy. The proposals they have already mentioned, or rather the changes my seniors have already mentioned that. Chairperson, we table the submission for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sichotlo, Mr. Alufe, and also Mr. Mkhize Jr. Members, we've got the item before us for consideration. Any questions, comments, additions? It's for the publication of the consultation paper. Mr. Mkhize?
Chairperson, I don't necessarily have any objections or I would say challenges with the proceeding with the publication. But my concern relates to paragraph 6 of the submission. Because this issue had been raised in prior years in terms of the tariff structure, maybe using a different name, but also affecting the retail tariff structure, and no reference whatsoever is made of that to deliberate, and for ESCOM to have submitted this plan without actually paying attention to issues raised before, inclusive of the IPT removal or the maintenance thereof, to me, it's not acceptable. We should be having progressive engagements that then tell us how things move from the past engagements to what we have before us today. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. If you can mute yourself, Mrs. Chotlo, I think we can get a bit of feedback from your side. Not feedback, but we can hear you.
Sorry, Chair.
Can hear you, yeah. Madam Maseti.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you to the presenters. Chairperson, let me start off with the issue of the tariff structures on paragraph 4.3 of the submission. Just to understand from the team, because unless my recollection is not accurate, ESCOM 2 years or so ago, I think it was 2 or 3 years, ESCOM has submitted a proposed tariff structure to the energy regulator, but the team could not assess it because, it did not meet, I think there was just a preliminary assessment of it, but it could not be taken into consideration for a decision at that stage. And we expected the team to engage further with ESCOM on the proposed tariff structure. So I would like to find out where what progress has been made with regards to that, because we couldn't take that into consideration for purposes of the decision of the application at that stage. And the team did not have a sufficient opportunity to engage and also to get the further information on the issues they were concerned with at that point in time. So what is the progress that has been made? Because I see now on 4.3, it appears as if ESCOM has never submitted any tariff structure. So I would like to understand where we are in respect of that. And the second thing is that, Chairperson, there was also another proposal on the a rationalization of the tariffs. And I would like to find out where that process is as well. And it was intended also to do away with some of the tariff structures that were detrimental to some municipalities, where they were buying at a very high tariffs compared to the others. So we're waiting to now hear what was going to happen, because ESCOM was dealing with that. So if the team can also update us on that process, where is that process? What came out of that process as we now look into this? Chairperson, again, I would like, in terms of the questions that we are going to pose to the stakeholders on this a consultation paper, I think we need to put 2 or so questions around the proposed capacity generation charge that has been proposed by ESCOM, so that it can also, stakeholders can get an opportunity to understand the rationale for the capacity generation charge. What is it for? And what is the cost that ESCOM seeks to cover by proposing that charge? I think it will be important. So we need to come up with questions from stakeholders to find out whether that is something that is justifiable or reasonable, and whether ESCOM should be allowed to recover such a cost or a charge, if there is a cost to that. And then on the issue of the IBTs, I think also it is important to start even the conversation now through this, because it has been proposed that we then ask the question, or put the question to stakeholders about the proposed cancellation of the IBTs, whether this is the time, whether it follows the correct procedure to do that. So you can ask questions around that, and whether the IBTs have yielded the intended purpose. So you can ask such questions from the stakeholders, and really these are questions that are intended to enhance the submission, Chairperson, because I think it will assist us also in getting a better understanding around those issues, so that even if we allow or not allow, at least would have given the stakeholders an opportunity to guide the energy regulator on how they view these things. I would like to stop there, Chairperson, but I think there are areas where we could put questions to stakeholders so that we get more information on what has been proposed by ESCOM for the benefit of this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Maseti. Okay, so you dropped your hand, Mr. Mkhize. I thought maybe you still had a further question. Ms. Jessie Chotlo, if you can assist, please.
Yeah, Chair, I thought I should take this one because it also has some questions of history, so better fitted than Mr. Mkhize and Mr. Rarufe. First of all, I think the issue that is raised by Mr. Mkhize about certain things that were discussed in the past, especially with regard to the IBT. That's why I'm actually raising that. We are already engaging with ESCOM on a weekly basis every Monday. So we will then really engage with them on that issue and then update it when we bring the aid memo to the members. And then there was also a question from Ms. Maseti regarding the tariff proposals that were returned. Ma'am, remember, if we remember the reason why that RTP was returned was because ESCOM had not updated their cost of supply, cost to serve study. And now after that, ESCOM has actually updated it, and that's why now it's coming back. And the bulk of those tariffs that are coming with this application were already in that previous submission. So it's a continuation, but at least this time it is supported by the cost to serve. So we are saying we are now ready to actually review it and then maybe approve or approve in totality, or approve some of the proposals. And then I take the advice on the questions to stakeholders regarding first the generation capacity and why it is being introduced and the cost of that capacity to customers. That will be an enhancement, and we'll do that. And then again, the IBTs, as I said at the beginning, we are already engaging with ESCOM, but again, as you said, we will then also include it in the questions to stakeholders, especially the part that you say, has it yielded the purpose as alleged by ESCOM that it did not yield the purpose that it was intended to yield. I'll stop there, Chair. I don't know if I've missed anything. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Mr. Chotla. I think these were meant to be enhancements on the, so whichever that you can incorporate on the consultation paper before you publish, that would be welcomed. Members, the decision that was sought on this one is, in fact, not sure if it was written to the record, but I wrote to request the ELS to approve the consultation paper on the ESCOM retail tariff plan, which is attached, and to approve the publication on the website, on the NERSA website, and to note the timelines. If there are no further questions, members, can we approve? Go to item 14, and by show of hands, members, if we can approve what is listed in paragraph 14.1. Thank you, Mr. Mkiza. Thank you, Mr. Bokwe. Thank you, Madam Maseti. Thank you, Ms. Siman. Advocate Tole, comfortable? Thank you, Advocate. All right, so your consultation paper is approved. It should then go to ER for noting, Mrs. Chotla. So just remember to do it to pager for noting at ER. Item number 13, Mr. Mkiza Jr.
Item number 13, Chairperson, is the consolidated report on the electricity generation industry compliance audits. Ms. Kolile Magwala will come in and provide us with the salient points of this submission. Mr. Magwala, you can come in. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mkiza. Good morning, Chair, members, colleagues, and the members of the public. I will take this presentation as read. The purpose of this submission is to request the Electricity Subcommittee to note the report on findings of the generation compliance audits conducted in the second quarter of the 24-25 financial year and approve the posting of the report on the NERSA's website after clearing the confidential matters with the licensees. This matter is duly delegated to the Electricity Subcommittee as per clause 3.1 of the delegation matrix. The NERSA team audited 7 licensees in the second quarter as per the audit plan that was approved on the 8th March 2024. The list of the 7 licensees is depicted on the page 3, table 2 of the submission. Note that the 3 licensees fully complied with the grid code for renewable power plants, while 4 licensees applied for the temporal exemption against the RPP code. Only 1 licensee did not comply with its license conditions, and there is a progress in the implementation of the corrective action plan for the licensee. It is therefore recommended that the Electricity Subcommittee note the consolidated report attached as Appendix A and approve the posting of the consolidated quarter report on the NERSA website after clearing the confidential matters with the licenses. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Makwala. I'm not sure if you've presented before. Anyway, hopefully you have. If this is your first time, thank you for your first one. But anyway, members, we've got the item before us for your comments, enhancement, questions, by show of hands. If none, then members, I'll take you then to the recommendation, which has been read onto the records, paragraph 14, which is on page 6 of 137. By a show of hands, members, can we then approve that recommendation? Thank you, Ms. Mane, Mr. Mkhize, Madam Maseti, Mr. Pokula, and Advocate Itolo. Mr. Magwala, you've got your decision. Mr. Mkhize, Junior, item 14.
Thank you, Chairperson. This is a 6 months progress report on ESCOM's 6-year negotiated pricing agreement with Samanco Chrome Limited. Chairperson, suffice to say, I will just mention that the document is a 6 months progress report. It's presented here every 6 months on all of ESCOM's 6 or 3-year negotiated pricing agreements. This one is with Samanco Chrome, which is limited to its 6 ferrochrome smelter operations in Mpumalanga, in Limpopo, Northwest, and covering the period from 1 January 2024 to 30 June 2024. For the details of the submission, can I please have Ms. Kwena Matlo present this submission? Ms. Matlo, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Chairperson, good morning, members and colleagues. This report is in line with the Energy Regulator decision of 26 October 2023 for the approval of ESCOM's 6-year NPA with the Samanco Chrome venture for the ferrochrome smelter operations in Mpumalanga, Limpopo, and Northwest. The discounted tariff was escalated in line with the decision number 4 of the Energy Regulator. The approval of the NPA has sustained direct and indirect jobs as well as the downstream production of stainless steel in South Africa. Samanco has assisted the national system operator with the load reduction for the first 6 months. It is recommended that the Electricity Subcommittee note the 6 months progress report on ESCOM's 6-year NPA with Samanco Chrome for each of its 6 ferrochrome smelter operations in Mpumalanga, Limpopo, and Northwest for the period 1 January to 30 June 2024. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Matlo. I haven't heard you speak in a while at this meeting. Members, you've got the item before us. And by the way, members, if you could, perhaps there may be generic questions in respect of these, because there are 4 items that are fairly similar in terms of these NPAs. There may be generic questions that you may want to ask on all of them. If we can maybe tackle them on this item, and then we can look at each of the individual item on its own when we get to it. But over to you, members. Any questions on this particular one? A show of hands? Enhancements, perhaps? Thank you, Mr. Pokula.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, my question probably covers all of these NPAs. I mean, in the current application that we have of ESCOM, there's an indication by ESCOM that part of the price increase, I think 5% of it, comes from these NPAs. And my request is that maybe as a matter arising, if we can quantify then the numbers that like the revenue loss, if I may call it that ESCOM is making out of these NPAs, and whether it corresponds to that 5% increase in the price. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Pokola. By the way, Ms. Matlo, I noticed that there are no, we don't have any strike-throughs here in terms of the numbers. I assumed that a lot of these numbers were under confidentiality, the actual physical numbers themselves. Am I correct? And is that an oversight that all of the numbers, in all of them actually, that we didn't strike them through?
My apologies, Chair. I was supposed to mention before presenting to say the numbers are all confidential.
Thank you. All right, but there is a request as a matter arising that we actually quantify the losses, if there are losses to the revenues to ESCOM due to these NPAs, and see whether they actually equate to that 5% that's been put forward. Thank you, Mrs. Chotlo. I see your thumbs up. Any further comments, members? Madam Maseti?
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, we have always asked these questions and requested the team to closely monitor the the impact of these NPAs, especially if it would mean that other customers will have to pay more as a result of the NPAs, whilst others are benefiting, especially those that are consuming a lot of electricity, and they are getting a lower price. We had asked whether the prices that they are receiving they cover the cost, and also and the margin that is reasonable to Eskom, and how much is that margin when you compare it with other standard customers. So that becomes important, especially if it would mean that Eskom's revenue gets compromised by the NPAs, and that was not intended. If now Eskom comes around and has also entered into those agreements and supported such applications, and yet it comes back and say that its revenue is compromised, and therefore other customers now, standard customers, must now pay and cover for the shortfall that is caused by these NPAs. I think that is something that needs to be looked at carefully by the energy regulator, so that we do not add a burden on other customers for prices that are benefiting a few. So it's something that we need to look at carefully, Chairperson, so that we can balance the interest of other customers and not add more through these other interventions that may well be good, but if they are compromising other people, I don't think that we need to turn a blind eye to those type of things. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Massetti. Mr. Mkhize? Mr. Mkhize Senior, by the way.
Yes. Thanks, Chairperson. I would request that maybe on the table 2, table 2, if they can indicate what was promised vis-a-vis what was achieved, because the under approved annual targets or approved, I don't see any number there, because it's important to see if what was promised or targeted to be achieved is indicated vis-a-vis what is the actual achievement in all areas that pertain to the justification or the business case for having NPAs. Yeah, I will leave it at that, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. This is one of those where I try not to say anything, but I think for me the challenge with this is, so when these are negotiated and the discussions that I had on this, the indication from Eskom has never been that they're actually making losses from these NPAs. Perhaps not the kind of normal tariffs, the time of use tariffs or whatever, but that they're actually making a profit. It is indeed for me concerning that in the revenue application they have made this time around, they've indicated that there is a 5% loss due to them, because previously in all of the discussions that we've had during a number of these, there's not been an indication. That's number one. Number two, I think the challenge that is faced here is one that says, it's in any capital project, you always need a critical mass. You always need the people. If you bring water to a particular area, you always need to have that one client that's going to be a base client. And sometimes it gets a little challenging later when the base client has provided the base demand and allowing an infrastructure to be built, and then everybody else then connect because there was this critical mass or this critical load. Now, subsequently later, when this is now looked at, the tariffs that are provided to the critical load versus everybody else is then compared, and there are always issues that emerge. And then thirdly, for me, I think in the main, sometimes if one look at the continuous load, 365, 7 days a week load, that is and one compares that with a variable load, even if it's a mid-merit load, it's 12 hours a day. It's predictable, it's 12 hours, but clearly the cost can't be the same. So, or rather the prices can't be the same. But I think lastly for me, I think energy is an economic infrastructure. And a lot of it is one thing to have it, but if you're not going to use it for the beneficiation of, or rather for the industrialization of the country, and we look at it as a mere commodity, it does present its own challenges. So I think to the questions asked by members, when we bring this thing, when we bring the report back on this as a matter arising, all of those issues need to be looked at and looked at in the context in which these NPAs are made in terms of the industrialization of the country. And yes, of course, the idea is not for the residential customers, for instance, to be subsidizing a ferrochrome plant. But to the extent to which that is happening, which unfortunately from the previous submissions, there's never been that indication. It's something that we need to look at. But we need to counteract that with the possibilities of shutting down industrial output, especially in respect of things like steel. If we shut that down, or even aluminium for that matter, shutting down the local production, but you still need to use that particular commodity as the country. There are major benefits, not just in terms of direct employment, but yeah. So all of those things need to be looked at if they have not been looked at previously. But it's something that we'll actually consolidate. I think it's important that we look at that as one project for all of these NPAs and not just looking at one. But of course, if you are comparing ferrochrome versus imported alumina, you actually get very different benefits. But it's something that we definitely need to look at as NERSA. But I do not believe, at least that's not what Eskom previously had communicated, that there are any pro-subsidies from other consumers to these large consumers. The thing that I always understood is that there is reduced subsidies from these large consumers to other consumers to be able for them to actually get the price. I just thought I would actually just raise those issues for the record. Thank you. But I think the issue has been noted, and the request by members has been noted. It's going to be a matter arising, but we need to make sure that we write up a very comprehensive report, because I think that's a question also that has also emerged from Parliament that we need to provide a proper response to. Thank you. With that, we've been asked, I think, as the committee, to note the six monthly progress report. By show of hands, members, if we can do that, taking into account the actual request for the report. Thank you, Madam Simane. Thank you, Madam Maseti. Thank you, Advocate Tole, Mr. Bukola. Mr. Mkiza, happy to note. Mr. Mkiza? Okay, all right. But the report is so noted. If you can then go to item 15, by taking into account that all of the issues that have been raised by members on this one would also apply to this one too. Who's presenting this one, Mr. Mkiza Jr.? Still Ms. Matlow?
Chairperson is still Ms. Matlow. She can come in.
Thank you. Madam Matlow?
Okay, thanks, Chair. This report is in line with the Energy Regulator decision of 31 March 2022 regarding the approval of Eskom's 3-year NPA with Sublime Technologies. The discounted tariff was escalated in line with the decision number 4 of the Energy Regulator. Sublime has complied in terms of the consumption, which is above the assumed target, and participated in Eskom's demand response. And the approval of the NPA has sustained direct and indirect jobs and also sustained downstream in industries utilizing silicon carbide. It is recommended that the Electricity Subcommittee note the 6 months progress report for Eskom's 3-year NPA technologies in Grill, Mpumalanga. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Madam. Members, any particular issue with this particular one? Something that's unique to this one, Sublime Technologies? Questions, comment, enhancement? If not, the decision that is sought, again, is on paragraph 14 on page 7 of 55. So we've been asked, the electricity subcommittee is requested to note the 6-month progress report. By show of hands, members, if we can note this one. Madam Maseti, my name is Mr. Mkize, Advocate Sitole, and Mr. Bukula. Thank you. The full decision there, Ms. Matlow. The next one, Ms. Mabinya, I think. Over to you, Mr. Mkize Jr.
Yes, thank you, Chairperson. Maybe just to mention on these ones, Chairperson, that the original purpose of the NPAs was to assist, distressed, organizations, especially heavy industry, that are struggling with, paying the standard tariffs to be able then to afford, as well as to also keep jobs. I just want to mention that on this particular one, on Hillside, the NPA has assisted to retain approximately 2,340 direct jobs, as well as other numerous indirect jobs. So just a reminder, Chairperson, in considering this, to just recall the overall purpose of these NPAs. Ms. Mabinya will present this particular one on Hillside Aluminium. Thank you, Ms. Mabinya.
Thank you, Mr. Mkize. Good morning, Chairperson, members, colleagues, and the public. Chairperson, this submission previously served before the ELS meeting, and it was referred back for further enhancements. And the enhancements included an inclusion of an economic impact analysis of the approved NPA and the NPA tariff that needed to be verified. The enhancements are contained in tables 1 and 2 of the submission, Chairperson. We therefore request the ELS to note the Hillside monitoring report as per the recommendations. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. Ms. Mabinya, before members ask you this question, I think on the table 1, unfortunately, it's one of those difficult to read because they are sideways. But that number there that we have there can't be in cents per kilowatt hour. That number must be in rands per megawatt hour. That number, and on the second column, first on the first paragraph, on the first row, depending on how you're reading this. First row, if you're reading it slant, but second column, that number there it can't be in cents per kilowatt hour. Correct?
It's correct, Chairperson. We will rectify that going forward. Thanks.
All right, thank you. So, members, apologies for that. It's just, sometimes we think in cents per kilowatt hour, but we write numbers in rand per megawatt hours. All right, members, any questions, particularly on this one? Further enhancements? If not, so members, again, take you to the decision that is sought. That's on paragraph 14. As it's been read into the record, that we are requested as a subcommittee to note the 6-month progress report on the Eskom's 10-year NPA with Hillside Aluminium Smelter situated in Richards Bay. Plateau is a local authority KZN. By show of hands, members, if we can note this report. Thank you, Madam Maseti. Thank you, Madam Smane, Mr. Bukula, Advocate Sitole, and Mr. Mkize. We've got the full house again. Mabinya. The last one on this, item 17, is it still yours, Mabinya?
Yes, thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, this report is on the Glencore NPAs for the 6-year NPA, which is in line with the decision of the energy regulator made on the 26th of October 2023. The discounted tariff that was implemented is in line with the Energy Regulator Decision number 4. And the approval of these NPAs has contributed to both direct and indirect jobs, as well as the downstream production of the stainless steel in South Africa, as well as Glencore has also provided assistance to the national system operator with the load reduction for the period under review, and we therefore recommend the ELS to note the 6 months progress report on the 6-year NPA with Glencore Merafe. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Madam. Members, any further inputs on this particular NPA? Comments specific to this one? None. So members, I'll take you to the recommendation that is sought on page 8 of 57. As indicated, it's recommended that the ELS note the 6-month progress report on ESCOM 6-year NPA with Glencore Merafe Chrome Venture for each of its 4 ferrochrome smelter operations in Mpumalanga, Limpopo, and Northwest for the period of the 1st of January 2024 to the 30th of June 2024. By show of hands, members, if we can note that. Thank you, Madam Maseti. Thank you, Mr. Pukulam, Madam Simani, Advocate Sithole, and Kabazel. Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. You've got your decisions, Mr. Mkhize Jr. Can we then move on to item 18?
Yes, Chairperson, this is a second quarter progress report on the implementation of corrective action plans, which will be presented by Ms. Nokuthula Ngwenya. I'll ask Ms. Ngwenya to present. Thank you. If not Ms. Ngwenya, the HOD, ELC, Mr. Hopper.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Chair, members, management, and colleagues. I will present Mr. Mkhize. I would like to take this submission as read. The purpose of this submission is to request the Electricity Subcommittee to note the second quarter progress report on the implementation of corrective action plans. The noting of the progress report on the information gathered on the electricity regulatory matters is delegated to the ELS by clause 3.2 of the delegation matrix. On the 4th of April 2023, the energy regulator noted the enforcement plan indicated in table 1 of page 2 on page 2 of 9. The submission is about the progress implementation of the corrective action plans that are based on the findings of the electricity generation compliance audit conducted in 2023-2024 of the following licenses: Aqua Power Solar Africa Port CSP Power Pty Ltd, Electra Capital RF Pty Ltd, and Simasel 115 RF Pty Ltd. On the 15th of January 2024, NERSA sent letters to the licenses requesting them to develop a corrective action plans. The letters were accompanied by the audit reports and corrective action templates. The follow-up emails were requesting the CAPs were sent on the 12th of September 2024 to the licenses. On the 16th of September 2024, Simasel 115 responded with a CAP with indicative timeframes, and on the 23rd of September 2024, Electra Capital responded with a CAP with indicative timeframes, and Aqua Power Solar Africa Port responded with a CAPs on the 7th of October 2024. It is therefore recommended that the Electricity Subcommittee note the second quarter progress report on the implementation of corrective action plans that are based on the findings of the electricity generation compliance audit conducted in 2023-2024, attached here to as Appendix A. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Ngwenya. Members, we've got the report before us. Any questions, clarity, enhancements? A show of hands. I don't see any hands. Therefore, clear. Ms. Ngwenya, we are clear. Members, the recommendation is on page 4 of 9. And I think it's been read onto the record, but just to be assured, it's recommended that the Electricity Subcommittee notes the second quarter progress report on the implementation of corrective action plans attached here to the Appendix A. By show of hands, members, if we can approve those. Ms. Temerati, before you do, I thought you would actually comment, Ms. Temerati, on this. But members, before you approve, I think Mr. Murati wanted to clarify something.
Thanks, Chairperson. I would firstly apologize for raising this issue in the platform, in that there's a bit of a challenge for the committee being said that it has the powers to approve the corrective action plans. And this is a similar challenge that we encountered when we guided the distribution team to say the approach that has been taken is a management process, and it's not aligned with the provisions of the law, in that it had to be the issues of compliance. They need to arise from a regulatory process wherein Section 18 would have been raised, not in a manner that management would have gone and then solicited the compliance related issues. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. By the way, Mr. Murati, I had assumed that you had been engaged when this report was raised, was finalized. And also, secondly, I thought it referred to perhaps the past periods, and hence why I also allowed it to be discussed here. Because I actually share your concern. But Mr. Mkiza Jr., if you can assist members, address that issue.
No, thank you, Chairperson, for the opportunity. Chairperson, our understanding of the developments in distribution compliance is based on the amendment of the distribution compliance framework. However, with regards to the generation compliance as well as the transmission compliance framework, they remain intact, and therefore we have, as a matter of a management decision, decided to start with distribution in terms of modifying the framework. However, when the tribunal is operational and there are systems in place to bring about the changes that have successfully taken place at distribution, they will then be transferred also to transmission as well as generation. So the other frameworks, Chairperson, for generation remain the same. So we remain guided by laws, but our understanding is that those frameworks remain the same. Thank you, Chairperson.
Mr. Mkiza, can I then recommend this? I'm not going to put this to the members to vote, because I'd assumed, actually, because you did raise with me, but I do remember I may have signed it quite a while back, but my assumption is that we had engaged with legal. Because the Section 18 does not discriminate between distribution licenses or transmission licenses. That process applies for all licenses. So for all the categories of licenses that we have, it's non-compliance is non-compliance. It doesn't discriminate between whether the licensee is a distribution, is somebody who's got a license to operate a distribution facility, or is it a trader, or is it somebody who's licensed to operate a transmission system, or in the future to operate a system, or to operate the market, or to operate a generation facility. It does not discriminate. It applies across the board. So can I then request that you, again, if it's okay with the members, if we can just remove this one and ensure that there is again consultation between LAS and Mr. Mkiza's team, because it's that particular enforcement framework, which is what we discussed earlier, applies to all licenses. It's not specific. So if you don't mind, Mr. Mkiza Jr., if we can then take this one out and I'll then request members. Firstly, I'm assuming that members do not have any opposition to my proposal, that this be referred back for consultation with LAS. Thank you. I'm not sure that to put that on record, to put that on a vote. Mr. Mabunda, should I?
Chair, your ruling suffices on this one.
All right. No, thank you. All right. Then let's step off that. Let's then go to item number 19, to the extent that it's not different to what we've just indicated. But can I hand over to you, Mr. Mkhize? But remember, my request is always, before these matters come here, they need to be consulted with LAS, please. Mr. Mkhize.
Thank you, Chairperson. Just to place on record that LAS did have view of the previous report, but notwithstanding, we will again engage on the matter. This one, Chairperson, I see Ms. Massetti's hand.
Madam Massetti, let's recognize you.
Chairperson, thank you. I didn't want us to engage further on this submission that you removed, but I would like us to get an opportunity at the governance section just to deal with the processing of this, because now we amend the very agenda that we adopted at the beginning of the meeting, but we can discuss that at the governance meeting. Thank you. Section.
Okay, thank you, Madam Massetti. Noted. Please do remind me. Okay, Mr. Mkhize Jr., if we can present this one.
Yes, thank you, Chairperson. This is the first quarter report on the electricity distribution industry compliance audits, which was brought to the ELS earlier in September, but was later withdrawn. Chairperson, the team has removed, as recommended by LAS, all references to the development of the CAP, as well as conducting of audits that were intended to be monitored in the implementation of CAPs. So the team will now refer all reports with non-compliances to LAS, as mentioned in 4.7 above. But Chairperson, just to mention that, we do try to be as, expedient and quick in implementing these things, but we have just presented the compliance procedure, which is not yet complete. But be that as it may, the changes have been implemented, and we are hoping that this particular submission will be acceptable. I will ask Ms. Bulelwa Kobe, rather, to present this submission, Chairperson. Thank you.
Okay, before you do, Ms. Kobe, can I ask Mr. Murati any issues with this so that we don't waste the committee's time?
We can proceed with it, Chair.
All right. No, thank you. Ms. Kobe, please proceed.
Thank you so much. Good morning again. This is as Mr. Mkhize has mentioned, this report was brought to the ELS on the 3rd of September, meeting number 227, but it was withdrawn because we were still referring to the implementation of the corrective action plan, which the framework that was approved in May made us not to refer to those CAPs, but instead we recommended that those reports with non-compliances will be referred to LAS. So that's what we did with this report. We removed all of the matters that refer to the CAP and the monitoring thereof. And we shared this report with LAS, as Mr. Murati has alluded. The summary of findings is on page 16 of 39, where we highlighted a number of non-compliances that are in the electricity license conditions, such as licensees who don't have maintenance plans, who are not ring-fenced, whose bulk accounts are not up to date. And we picked up one that did not implement the tariff correctly. So our aim is to recommend the ELS to note this report, and then we start sending these reports to last so that we can implement the framework effectively, knowing very well that we still need to do more work on our procedures. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gobe. Members, you've got... Sorry? Ms. Gobe, thank you for the report. Members, you've got the report before you. Any questions in respect of this particular report? Been here before? Any particular issues? By show of hands? If none, the report itself is here for noting. So if we can then, by show of hands, members, if we can then note the report, the first quarter report for the EDI compliance. Thank you, Ms. Simane. Thank you, Mr. Pukula. Thank you, Advocate Sitole, Madam Massetti. So note, Mr. Mkize, comfortable to note? Thank you, Mr. Mkize. The report is so noted. This brings us to the end of the open meeting. I'd like to thank all of the stakeholders that may have sat through with us. It's been a very long and lengthy program, but we appreciate your time that you spent following our meetings, and we always invite any improvements. People can send emails to Mr. Mabunda to indicate any improvements that we may need to make in the running of this subcommittee, or in terms of all of the issues that may pertain to the energy regulator. We thank you all, and also thank the Danish delegation, who perhaps, hopefully, they've been able to follow how we do the work here, and be able to assist to identify perhaps gaps in terms of capacity, and be able to assist us in terms of the capacity building program that we have with the Danish, if they could see perhaps areas of improvement that they can assist us with. With that, I'd like